Part of our Wisconsin Ambassadors of Music European tour this summer. Hockey got a chance to see some probably amazing European culture, but also play in some even more amazing venues. And when you're a Wisconsin ambassador traveling with the director, the band director from Dodgeville, you're something special, and you continue to do great things, and we're just really excited about that. Hockey, could you share a little bit about the experience? Because you probably won't, I won't do it justice, I didn't get to go with you, but I think with this backdrop, if there's any indication of the time and culture that you're able to see in another place, please share with us a little bit more.
Yeah, so end of June and the beginning of July, I had the opportunity to travel with the Wisconsin Ambassadors of Music. I played trombone with a band of 150 members, and along with us was a choir of 90 members, 340 people total on the trip, including all the chaperones. We toured 7 different countries: England, France, Switzerland, Austria, Italy, Liechtenstein, and Germany, and they were all very interesting and unique in their own way. It was just a great opportunity. I'm glad I got to be a part of it. I'm glad the Single Point music program got me into it.
We're glad that you represented us in that ambassador program, so thank you very much. Congratulations. We'd like to recognize you. Come up and shake your hand. So. Come on this way. We'll start with me and then work the way.
All
right. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. Good job. Here's a little gift
For you.
Congratulations.
For you.
And our second sets of recognitions are our Badger Girls and Boys State. This year, Mineral Point was represented by Morgan Fitzsimons and Max Paulskill. Badger Boys and Girls State is a program that's been around for quite some time. They teach students the inner workings of our government. In this particular case, they met at Ripon College for the boys and UW Oshkosh for the girls, and they basically had to create their own local, state, national governments to kind of run a scenario, and they had to get people that represented everything from local police and sheriffs to lawyers to town municipalities that would help to develop the future of their culture. So I see Max here. Is Morgan here?
She's at State Fair.
She's at State Fair, yep, of course. Max, you want to share a little bit about the experience and maybe what you learned, and tell us a little bit more about those days that you were with them.
All right, so I went to Ripon for Badger Boys State. So the first day we got there, it was like 95 degrees. So just 917-year-old guys on campus it's like 95 degrees, and you just spend 2 hours in the gym on orientation. We had no idea what we were going into, so you got split up into your cities right away, which is about 25 to 35 guys in each city. I was in the city of Rusk, so we were just in one of the dorm buildings with three other cities in it. And then the first day you just get pushed right into it. You start law school or whatever school you're going into. I went to law school, and the second day's elections, I got elected city judge. And then right after that, you just go right into your county party, all that stuff. And I actually got circuit court judge, so I was the judge for the whole county. I got elected out of 200. I ended up giving a speech at my party's convention in front of 450 to try and get ambassador of instruction, which is like the thing where I get to help the future years of Badger Boys State. I didn't get elected, I lost by 18 votes, but you know it happens. And so yeah, it was a really good experience. I got to meet a lot of cool people. One of my counselors had perfect ACT score, is going to Harvard next year for law. So it's really cool to meet a lot of the lawyers that I want to do, because I do want to be a lawyer someday. So I got to meet litigation lawyers, intellectual property lawyers, and all the people that I want to idolize in my life. So it was really cool, and I just learned a lot there. So.
Amazing experience, and thank you for representing Mineral Point. Come on, we'd love to congratulate you. Congratulations.
You'll make a fine lawyer someday.
I should mention that Hawkins here with his mother, Ruth, and Max is here with his parents, Ann and Bruce, so thank you for attending. You both, and all teams should be very proud. Thank you so much. You're welcome to stay. We're going to pause and restart the regular board meeting at 6:30, so those that are planning to 6:30 start can join us on time. But thank you again. It's good to see you again.
Soccer's calling.
Soccer. I would assume so. There's the other station in Vegas, but she's in town.
Okay. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll do the pledge first. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
the roll call.
Stevenson.
Here.
Hay.
Here.
Basting.
Here.
Kinch. Bush.
Here.
Dolphin. Stevens.
Here. Communications, approval of minutes first. Motion to approve. I think we had the one meeting in here.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Larry. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
I did have one, but that's on approval
Yeah.
pertaining to Luke and the golf charge. What we're talking about.
That's not in the minutes, that would be probably in the bills payable.
The bills paid.
Okay. I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, this is minutes of July, I think July 11th.
That's okay.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Communications, board communications received? Anybody? Okay. This is the time to do citizen communications.
Anybody sign up, Joel?
No one is signed up. Is there any?
I'll take any comments, concerns? Material, Teresa?
Not right now.
Okay, all right. Right here. Administrative business services, credit card statement of activity. Is there any concerns out there?
No, it wasn't that.
There was none credit card. Do we have a motion to approve the credit card statement? Motion by Julie, second by Andy. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we will do a roll call.
Stevenson.
Yes.
Hay.
Yes.
Basting. Bush.
Yes.
Dolphin.
Yeah.
Stefas.
Yes. Number 2, approval of bills payable. Do we have a motion for that?
I have a question. The copier bill, I mean, it's an annual lease to Urban Flush. Is that something that gets put out to bid or could get put out to bid?
It was put out to bid, I believe this is year 3 of a 5-year contract. And so when it did expire, we did bid it out. Rico was the other vendor that solicited a bid at that time. The board accepted and approved the contract for Gordon Flesch for 5 years. That number represents to the entire copier fleet, which is a reduction from when I first arrived of the total number of copiers. It also includes toner and service in that agreement for a year. So that's the annual one-time payment for that lease.
And so, and then this is 3 of 5?
3 of 5, I believe. I can double check that, but I think that's correct from my memory.
That one there on Chromebook, I thought we were done by those last meeting.
Those were, I believe, special education, but point me in the right direction here. Which page and number are you looking at?
It was 14.
14, CDW. these were purchased for the elementary library by Carrie Cabot. So these are not funds for operating expenses that it's not part of our technology budget, this is part of the library budget, and they are updating their carts in the library.
Is that just a cart or that's all?
That includes, there are, looks to be 90. I see 90 devices. These are minis. They're not the full, Chromebooks. They're more like, what do I call tablets? They're called mini laptops. And again, that was using library funds. They get what's called the Common School Fund, which is a state flow-through grant that can only be used for libraries. It's kind of a discretionary budget for library services.
Do they stay strictly in the library?
Stay strictly in the library. In fact, they cannot be reallocated to the classroom even after 2 or 3 or 5 or 20 years. They are for the library purpose, remain library purpose.
So then if they get obsolete, or I assume you're replacing some, so what
Yeah,
happens to the old ones?
you can discard, but you can't reallocate. Yeah. The Common School Fund has some very specific rules about how those grants or gift dollars can be used.
Do the kids, are they allowed to take them home?
These are not scheduled to
Check
be
out.
taken home. Checked out, yes, like to a classroom or used in the library, but not overnight.
So of the 22,000, is all flow-through dollars to a common school?
Yes, through
fund?
the Common School Fund, correct.
What equipment was fixed in the kitchen?
Roger has that. He gave me a quick update. Thought there was a dishwasher that was replaced or repaired, a range.
Because they've had a lot of problems with the dishwasher for years.
Yeah,
Replaced or
the
fixed.
capital expense to replace it is upwards of $20,000. We pulled some bids. We might be able to get some underneath 20, but for a good quality machine that's going to last 20 to 30 years, it's probably 20 to 30,000. So we continue to repair instead of replace until we can build up the fund balance to be sufficient in food service to make some capital expenditures.
Other than Joel was in Chicago? What was
Yes, that was the national convention. Joelle won an award as one of 2 people across the country to be recognized, and her registration was actually complimentary for receiving that award. She stayed with another person from Wisconsin, so they shared the hotel room cost. That's actually half of that expense.
You will, yeah, the $400 reimbursement from the hotel has been submitted to my account, but it's not on there. I don't think that would have been anywhere, but Marcia got to check for that.
Were you there for a week or how long?
5 days.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
This is half the expense, the 1,500.
No, I think my meals for 5 days in Chicago were about $96 of that. The room was $1,200, but I got $400 of that back, so it was actually $800. And then the mileage was the remaining balance.
And then you'll get a report from Joelle at the September meeting. She'll share some of what she learned at that conference with the board.
Okay, going on down then, Luke, there was a 4-person scramble.
Yes.
Why do we pay that out of that money?
That is actually out of Fund 21, so again, that is kind of a discretionary fundraising account. It's not the operational budget, so those are not dollars that are levied. That foursome consisted of myself, the new principal, Matt Renwick, and then the orthopedic clinic CEO and Dr. Josh Lindsay, and that was the foursome. They have been good partners with our schools as of late, and felt that it met on 2 fronts. The strategic plan has us building partnerships and relationships with the community, and wanted to connect our new principal with some of the key community members in our chamber. We're also a chamber member as a school district, and this is our way of contributing. It was just the registration only. There was no other cost. It was $60 per person times 4. Again, that's not coming out of any dollars that were levied by the community.
Where did the money come from? It's coming from the taxpayer someplace, right?
No, that's coming from fundraising accounts and gifts.
What fundraising?
I'm trying to think of the most recent fundraising activity we have. I can look at where the deposits are made, but they're not a transfer from the levy. They're actually gifts or checks or donations or fundraising that is deposited in that account for discretionary reasons, such as this.
I wonder why it's in here. With Joelle going to get this award, this is, I compliment her on getting the award, but I don't think it's something the taxpayers ought to be paying for the trip.
Actually, it wasn't really just the award, it was the professional development that went along with that award. She attended numerous sessions and brought back and has already shared with me on a deep level some of the things that she'd like to implement as a result of what she learned from that. So she's networking with people across the country in school personnel and related activities. Again, I think once you see the full report in September that she's going to share with the board, you'll agree that this was a conference that was worth attending. It also is noted that most likely we will not be attending that in the future because this one happened to be in Chicago. It was one that we could stretch to. A lot of times they're located in areas that would be very challenging for us to even drive to, let alone fly. So we took advantage of one that was nearby, as well as her being a nationally awarded recipient, one of 2 people across the entire country. We took advantage of the professional development.
No, it just seems like every month there's something in there, somebody's flying somewhere or going to a 3 or 4 day conference, and I'm just wondering whether we're really getting any value out of that or not.
We made it a strategic effort to bring all of those trips back to you so you can make that determination going forward. You'll also see the 3 teachers that went to Teachers College. They will come back in September as well and give a report to the board. And you can find out firsthand the things that they've learned. They're very excited to share with me. We're meeting Thursday morning with the things that they've learned. So kindergarten and 2 first grade teachers. We have 21 teachers that are going to Milwaukee for the Professional Learning Community Institute. It's the first time it's ever being offered in Wisconsin. That's coming up next week. Typically, the closest we would have gone is Lincolnshire, Illinois, or Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's offered across the country, but still traveling out of state is a lot further and more expensive than waiting for it. We're very excited that it's here in Milwaukee and that there's 21 teachers that were interested in giving up their summer days to attend this conference. It's not a requirement, it's optional, and I think it speaks volumes about the progressive movement we're making around collaboration and around essential learning outcomes and good assessments.
I can appreciate that. But going back to the trip to Chicago, you certainly must know about that months in advance.
Mhm.
Why not bring that to the board?
The board did have multiple communications that shared that Joelle was attending the national conference as a board.
Just through common emails to the board?
Through emails, and I would imagine there's probably a board record of it at some point because I think we publicly recognized her achievement in receiving that award. But we can dig up that information.
I think it was the day actually that I won it. We had a board meeting, I think it was like March 14th actually.
And either in April or May, I would like to see, especially an out-of-state conference, just bring it to the board and get approval, pre-approved trip out of state. The 5 night, that's kind of a big deal, and $1,500 is not chump change, that's for sure.
You get 400 of that back, right? Just clear.
Of course.
From where?
My roommate, she stayed with me for 3 of the 4 nights, so she reimbursed me her share of the room.
Typically, I would not expect you to have to share a room, but again, you were trying to be fiscally responsible and offered to share that room with somebody that's not in the district.
Correct. And I do think that $96 for food
in
for
Chicago,
5 days.
that's
I did, huh?
What's the value of the scholarship?
It was $1,000.
So $1,000 of this trip was paid for by the organization for her receiving this award.
It would cost more if she wouldn't have that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So-
Then it would be tough to go to that price.
Right.
So we'll get $1,000 plus the 400?
No,
$1,000 was waived, and we
Correct.
received $400
Oh, I
off
see.
of the existing invoice.
So it actually cost us
$1,100.
$1,100.
Yeah.
What did you bring back for us for $1,100, Joel?
That will be in September's board meeting, that's on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, one more item, 2 more. I see we have something with Gophers. Did you buy more of those things that were strapped in their leg or something?
You say Gopher? Yeah.
Gopher Sports.
So this is Mueller tape, pre-wrap, jump ropes, A lot of this looks to be equipment that is for the training room at the high school.
Not for Gopher.
482, Gopher Sports. Is that the amount that you're looking at?
That might be an individual coach, but I put the order into the training room.
Scott Schmitz, attention Scott Schmitz, so mat tape, I'm sorry, not athletic tape. It does have athletic tape here. Mat tape runs $136 a case. There's 2 cases of mat tape. There's Mueller athletic tape at $71, pre-taping 48 rolls at $48, and 4 jump ropes at $22, so a total of $482.
Jump rope 22 a piece, or is that the four?
22 apiece.
A piece. And it's not shopped around for them much. Then Gordon Flex, what kind of a contract is that?
That is what Lisa was just referencing. It is a 5-year copier lease. Again, the number of copiers has reduced. We had 13 when I first arrived. We're now operating with 7. In that copy lease, it includes all toner and service for the year, so that's an annual all-in fee of one-time payments. You won't see Gordon Flesh again for next year. We did bid that out 3 years ago, and we will bid it out in 2 years at the end of this contract and make sure that we're getting best pricing. We do have a lease with the option to buy the copiers if we so choose, which is something that we investigated last time, but they were aging copiers and the service agreement, and we felt that leasing a new for 5 years with full service, repairs, equipment, parts, and toner was the best way to go, and that was board approved 3 years ago.
And this will be annual for 3 more years?
I believe this is one of 2 more years. I'll check the contract start date for you just a
But that's
moment.
what it is per year?
That is for the full year, correct.
And then we bought some interstate batteries, $1,500. What we would need them for, remember?
Roger buys batteries throughout the district annually, everything from small AA's to larger batteries for maintenance needs. I can tell you exactly what his order was in just a moment. So in this case, there is this is all district purchased batteries, and so this would be across all buildings. I have a large battery, AA's, AAA's, and C's. Cases, quantities, 6, 2, 2, 2, and 1. Extended totals, totaling 1534.
We don't have any expensive buses, do we? I don't pay the fee.
We have a contracted services with the buses that we pay annually, and then we pay our own fuel.
Fuel, no breaks, nothing like that.
No.
Any questions?
I just wanted to mention, I feel more comfortable now that Joelle has explained a little bit of hers, but I still have a problem with teachers not being in the classroom. And I still really want, as the chair of the policy, I really believe that somehow that has to be addressed. Because it seems like we have people going to conferences or meetings or whatever, through the year particularly. I'm happy that these bunch of teachers are going in the summer because at least they're not out of the classroom.
Right.
And what kind of price are we going to be looking at that in a couple of months when that bill comes in?
Again, that's already been prepaid out of last year's budget, and again, that was out of Title II funding, which is professional development dollars. It's a state aid block grant that we received.
So that was already out of last year's
Already out of
budget.
last year's too. Yep.
But I can't stress this enough. I personally believe teachers should be in the classroom during the school year, so I really want that curtailed. And I might be the only one, if I am.
No,
I'm
not,
being
there's a lot
here,
of,
but
there's a lot of teachers feel the same way.
Perhaps that's a future board agenda item.
yeah.
Yeah, this 22 or 1 teacher, that's 67,000.
I don't know, but yeah, we did.
We have a summer conference, so like,
22 is one recently, 21 drop out.
On the 22nd. So
Okay.
21 hours besides,
Okay.
yeah.
I move to approve the two accounts payables.
Just one more night, Luke.
Yes.
If you want to let Marcia know the notes are appreciated, please send notes on
We'll
everything.
do that with Angie and I'll let her know.
Okay.
we have a motion by Lisa, we have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Julie. We will have a roll call.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Basting, Kinch,
Abstain.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Abstain.
and Stefas.
No.
What does that give us? 3 abstentions, 1 no. So we got a 3, 3, 1, I believe. So that does not pass.
Three, one, no. There's
Sorry,
no,
Mrs.
no. Sorry. I don't think there was a point foods.
I'm so used to end up staying. I'll change my vote to a yes.
Okay, passes 4, 1, 3. Stefas, no.
And the reason for the no was the,
412.
Kinch. 412, thanks. Kinch, Dolphin, abstain. Stefas, no.
the golf charge, Luke, people donate that money in good faith, and I just don't think that's a good use of the money. That's my reason.
Thank you.
All right, moving on.
The summer was other to the 4th weekend, really. But if you were sponsoring it, then it was good.
We are done with bills payable, personnel services, approval of staff additions.
We have 4 before you. They're all listed on the board agenda. Michelle Riley, middle school English full-time, Heidi Lawton, half-time, middle school reading, Lindsay Reed, clerical assistant to the elementary principal, and Jody Renwick, instructional assistant to the elementary. And I recommend approval of all 4.
Do we have a motion? Motion by Lisa, do we have a second?
I'll send it.
Second by Jeff. Any discussion?
So what is the step 6 on the assistant salary?
Step 6 is $13.06 per hour, and that is a position where there would be no benefits afforded.
Ms. Riley comes out of Belmont.
Miss Riley does come out of Belmont, correct? She's a veteran teacher there.
Okay.
What-
Thanks.
What's her pay there? Step 9 of that?
Step 9, $52,457 annually.
Okay, and then the Lawton, did she get benefits at that time?
She does not get benefits,
You
not that,
gotta be 70 or 80%.
75%.
We were lucky to have her come along.
Absolutely. Another seasoned veteran teacher that will come right in and fill that position.
Any other discussion?
Jody will report to Dixon,
Correct. Jody
and
Moore.
any conflicts will go directly to you.
Correct.
I got a little problem with that, number D there. Kind of with the method and protocol with how it was done. And it's, we've got 2 members of the family in the same building, with one working under the other, whether you say she's actually under Dixie or not, it still kind of gives a look of something different maybe than what it is.
certainly this wouldn't set precedent. There's been many husband-wife combinations in the district over the years, and we have set up a system that will make sure that supervisory and evaluation of the employee is conducted by another other than her direct supervisor being her husband. So I believe we've done our due diligence to make sure that we don't have a conflict set up, and I'll monitor that situation closely.
Why did we not post the job?
In this particular case, this candidate is highly qualified, more qualified than what we would need for an instructional assistant, willing to take this position to help transition her family into the district. They're going to be residing here. Another big piece is the financial piece to this, which is a non-benefit eligible paying position. If we were to hire an instructional assistant that would be eligible for family, for instance, that would be additional $17,000 that the district would pay. This to me was the most qualified person at the most fiscally responsible stipend that helps transition a family into our district, and it builds an additional revenue for our school when they enroll and have enrolled their 2 children. Soon to close on a house.
Will we use her Spanish with our ELL program?
Thank you. She is also, something we've been looking for desperately is somebody just that speaks Spanish in the building, knowing that we have 4 students, 3 students now, one who's gone up to middle school, but 3 students that are predominantly Spanish-speaking students, and no one in our building spoke Spanish. So her Spanish minor will certainly come in handy to try to support and assist those families and children. Thank you.
That's why I asked the question downtown. It's gonna be, if, let's say Larry's working here, and his wife gets insurance somewhere else, does he get paid for it here anyhow?
He can, no.
He doesn't get any money at all?
One would be on family, the other would not be taking insurance.
So there's no pay?
There is an alternative benefit plan for employees that are eligible. All employees, whether their spouse works here or not, has the ability to take an alternative benefit plan if they show they don't need proof of insurance. If they show they have proof of insurance through another spouse, whether it be here or anywhere else, school or other, and that actually is a savings to the district when they don't take a single plan, or they don't take a family plan. The alternative benefit plan is less than what we would play as an employer share contribution to a single plan.
They don't get a cash payment?
They get a cash in lieu of payment.
That's that roundabout.
$5,700, I believe. It's in the employee handbook. I can show that number when we get to that piece of it. It's the employer's contribution to a single premium. Single premium being 65, 57, would be 88%.
Did you raise that?
No, actually, it's dropped. With our changing our plan to a high deductible HSA, or health savings account, when our premiums came down, when our premiums come down, the employer's contribution comes down, and therefore the alternative benefit plan contribution comes down to that level as well. So we actually played closer to $7,000 probably when we first started this 5 years ago, and now we're paying roughly $5,700 for those that choose not to take insurance.
Is the same benefit for the support staff?
It is, yes. They can choose to use that as a cash deferral into a TSA.
About how many people are receiving this?
I want to say a couple dozen, 20, 24 or so. I can check with Marcia the latest numbers. They have to annually re-enroll every year and show proof that, again, their spouse, whether in the district or otherwise, has secured insurance in a different workplace. And with that evidence of insurance, they can take the lesser payout, which again is a big savings to the district.
It's bigger yet if we didn't do it.
How do you handle if, let's say I was working here, but my wife was at another district, because I know a teacher that is, and much wealthier district, so they take their insurance there. What if she was to lose her insurance and then I would need it? Then am I eligible to come back on?
Annually be eligible to re-enroll, yes.
Which would then
But they would usually
raise our-
probably, in that case, use COBRA to carry that extension on if they lost employment. They might use a COBRA extension in order to get them to the next plan bill.
Is that customer in the schools a lot of it? I don't see too many where.
Yeah, alternative benefit plan is prevalent in many school districts. It's not unique.
I don't think it's too prevalent in the private sector.
No.
It's $133,000 a year.
In the private sector, that's where you've got salary versus benefits, and teachers over time have traditionally taken less salary and more benefits.
Hearing no other discussion, we will have a roll call.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Basket, Kinch,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
and Stepples. Yes.
Items for information, discussion, enrollment history, and trends.
Timed out here, sorry, gang. I want to share with the board an enrollment report. This comes from our Forecast 5. We purchase this annually. It has the ability to run multiple reports for us to look at.
Who exactly is this Forecast 5?
Forecast 5 is not really anybody. It is a subscription that you purchase. It is a company. It's a product of PMA, which we are a client of. They used to do our financial forecast for many years. Scott Gralla would come in and share with us a lot of information. They have been able to do data analytics and dump information from multiple schools down into a database that we can then use for comparables to see how is our school doing compared to other schools. And I thought periodically it would be a good idea for me to share some of these reports that I use with the board so that I can look at trends and you also have those trends and can kind of help to make long-range planning decisions with regards to the board's involvement with how we want to operate our schools. So as we look at this first piece, and this mirrors in your packet to page 19, if you're following in your board packet. This first one is just overall enrollment, and if I were to just kind of show briefly, I'm going to stand without my pointer here, but overall, my arrival here was in the year 2011-12, so if you count back 5 bars, you kind of get a sense of my tenure here, but we had overall the gray bars on the top. Back in 2007, we were close to 800 students as a district, and we've been slowly kind of declining. Upon my arrival, we had a couple years of slight growth and a couple years of slight decline, but over my 5-year tenure, we've been relatively flat. But we have overall decreased from roughly 800 to the 725, 700s for butts and seats. The other piece that's interesting to note is that our economically disadvantaged group, that would be the kids that are considered free and reduced population, slowly increasing throughout time, but has really flattened out in 2013, actually taking a slight dip and just flatlining at about 30, just under 30%, 28%. So that has been a trend that I would have thought our economically disadvantaged students on this trend when I first arrived in 11-12 would have continued to just rise. Riverdale, for example, school district not too far of us, is 50 to 60% free and reduced lunch, and we flatline at about 30%. The next slide is how does that compare by building, and if we look at each building, more specifically elementary on the left, high school in the middle, and then the middle school at the right. If you were to stack the middle school bar on top of the high school bar, we'd have roughly equal enrollments, about 350 in each building. But as we look at it, we consider the middle school a different building for practical purposes when we report out. Our economic disadvantage is a little bit higher and has been traditionally in our elementary at around 30%, about 25 to 27% at the high school, more like 27 to 28% in the middle school. So breakdown by building. The next chart is the total grade level enrollment by grade. So you have kindergarten on the left, you've got 12 on the right. Again, this is data that would recommend, or that was reflecting the end of last year. So as you look at the 11th grade spike, that is actually this year's 12th grade class. The other spike that we know we had was our 6th grade class was really large last year. That'll be our 7th grade class going forward this year. Average class size across the last span, 51 kids on average per class. We did have a smaller 1st grade group that's moving on. We have a smaller 8th grade group. So something to think about is when this 11th grade group is now seniors, when they graduate, a big class is graduating and we don't quite know what's coming in yet in pre-K. But if we have a big group going out and a small group coming in, that's going to make a big disparity and it's going to show overall enrollment drop. on average, you see that it kind of levels out a little bit better here, especially in the middle. We do have one little dip here, but we are going to see a couple spikes there when they drop. If we don't have a big class coming in to fill it in, it will look like we're decreasing enrollment. But I think this is a good snapshot of looking over time, K through 12, to say, yeah, we're relatively staying flat. There's some highs and lows in there, roughly around 50 kids in a class.
Is that actual students, or is that FTE you're talking there? Or?
This is actual students based on the reporting that we had to send up to Department of Public Instruction. So this is what DPI would use for our student counts. There are part-time students that are factored into this, but all of those part-times, we don't have many of those students, but adds up to roughly 51 students on average. Next is just looking at our kindergarten and how is that trending, because that's often a big indicator of where we are and where we're going. So kindergarten starting on the left in 2007, all the way to 2016. Last year we're averaging class sizes of around 53. You can see some of those spikes as we were talking about as kindergartners grow up and go through 6th grade. We followed that spike in 2010 for a while now. I think on average, you know, if we looked at our pre-K-12 class average of 51 and kindergarten has been averaging 53, there's two indicators there that say we're going to be staying roughly around 50 plus kids in our classrooms for some time unless something significantly should change. I'm watching 2017 and 2018 to see if we're starting to get a trend that might be dipping here a little bit, but overall, just when you think you've got a dip, you get another spike and everything averages out. So we'll continue to monitor that as we go forward. This is open enrollment, and you can see the different pieces here. Green are kids that are transferring in. So roughly when I arrived here in 2011-12, we were looking at about 20 to 25 kids transferring in under open enrollment. And now we're closer to upwards in the 60 range. The transfers out are in red. We were looking at a drop here, -30, and that moved down to -45. I'm trying to figure out what that net drop means because you're in negative numbers, but I'm sorry, the transfers out mean because you're dropping further negative. So I think overall, the picture that I take away is the net transfers here have been significantly increasing over time. From what we've lost to what we've gained, our net over time seems to be trending upward. And that's what I've been monitoring and reflecting. Overall, I think a net gain of about 30 students from in to out net gain since we started in 2011-12 together. Demographics, there's not a lot here, but it is worth noting that if we go back in time to 2007, we have all of the ethnicities represented either by a small percentage, but overall, if we just looked at the Caucasian white group, 98% in 2007, and now 94% in 2016. In a small rural district, sometimes that just means 1 or 2 students in different ethnicities, but overall, we are becoming a more diversified school with regards to ethnicity. I believe that's my last slide. Attendance. This again here is our elementary building, our high school building, and our middle school building. And mostly again by demographics, 94 to 95% in our white group. We do have then our Black Hispanic group are also represented, but our overall attendance rate has been roughly about 98%, and that's been consistently trending at 98% all 5 years that I've been here. So no real problems with our attendance, but there are schools that are monitoring that because obviously the ability to get kids in school reflects directly with your ability to educate them and hold their attention span. Any questions on that report? I didn't want to take too much time, but I did want to give you some quick highlights and reports of attendance.
What accounts for homeschool kids?
Homeschool kids are actually not reported in our at all. Even though they might reside in our district, there is a separate report that the parent must fill out that shows evidence toward completing an alternative pathway to graduation, but that would not reflect in this particular report.
Do we know about how many there are?
Roughly, we did a study on that in 2012 and 13. We had between 12 and 18 total kids that were represented by like 5 or 6 families that had chosen to homeschool. What I can share is the trend for homeschooling has decreased. There's many less kids now homeschooling than when I first surveyed. We did look at reasons why, and they were really more for personal reasons than it was dissatisfaction with the school.
On the open enrollment, Luke, we give out questionnaires for kids that open enroll out and reasons for open enroll into Mineral Point.
We've conducted those surveys in the past. Oftentimes, and most often, I would say in a majority of the cases, it is somebody that resides in Mineral Point that lives just on the other side of Belmont, or works on the other side of Platteville or Dodgeville. And it's just as easy to drop their kids off at the St. Thomas or to Dodgeville, because it's just easier to drop off and pick up from home. Likewise, we get some people that are coming in, possibly working at some of our larger employers that are coming in for the same reasons. But the majority of reasons, again, that people are transferring out is for convenience sake. There was one instance that I know of, it was because we did not offer an extra co-curricular opportunity that was offered at a neighboring school district, and they decided to relocate so they could partake in that co-curricular.
Okay. It appears to me that's one bright spot in our enrollment numbers to try to maintain our 700.
Yeah, absolutely. What we've lost, I mean, if you look at just the residency in our school, the people that reside here and come to Mineral Point, those numbers have been declining and dropping. And we can't really account for that other than as kids leave, they're not coming back, or there aren't new families moving into the area with young children that are backfilling those that are leaving and going on to school. Besides that, though, to your point, the net open enrollment coming in has somewhat offset those kids that are not coming back, or families are not choosing to live in Mineral Point. I know that's been a focus of some of the community committees that are looking at how do we increase the desire to live here and grow a family here. I'd like to think that the school district is doing their part academically. We are as competitive of a school district as any neighboring district around us, and for that matter, Southwest Wisconsin. So as parents have choices, we hope that they look to Mineral Point in its academic performance to give us a good indicator as to why maybe they choose Mineral Point over some of the neighboring communities.
Any other questions? Anything else on enrollment? All right, board communications.
Just setting this up quickly for the board, did have a discussion. There was a board member that just asked if we could possibly look at a different way of delivering board packets, maybe in the forms of attachments and so forth. I had another board member at a different time and location state that they weren't able to open attachments such as Microsoft Office, Excel, because they didn't have that type of software. And as we looked at our trend over time, we discussed this about 5 years ago upon my arrival, and we were putting large, literally reams of paper together for the board when we had to put things out like the budget or the audits, or in this case, the handbooks. And it was a lot easier, and the decision was made by the board at that time for efficiency purposes and cost savings measures to move to an electronic version of what we now call Board Book. And that's what you see up here on the big screen, and is what we've been using for the past, I think, 3.5 years now. We certainly have the opportunity to discuss as a board if we want to continue to use this medium or this venue. It is very efficient for our office, because whether it's an Excel document, a Word document, a PDF, or a PowerPoint slide, it converts it automatically all to PDF, and then we can run a copy and share it with the board. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to run a copy. We could just have you electronically log in with the username and password that's provided. A lot of school districts provide their board with devices so that they can access the packet if they don't have the right computer or iPad at home. And with the training, navigate that packet electronically so we don't have to make copies. Right now, we more than half of the board, we hand deliver copies on Thursday afternoon. We drive around town, and it's just not a good use of our time, but we are here to provide information for the board so you can make informed decisions. So the question before the board is whether they want to continue to use a hard copy, an electronic copy, both going forward, just a chance to revisit that and proceed in the way that you want to operate as a board. And then a second piece to that is a part that has come up in a couple board members with a discussion of whether or not we should use personal email accounts or school email accounts. The school has created a school email account for each board member, and it is available to use through Gmail or Google Mail. The upside to that is then we can archive that, and if we were to have an open records request, we could retrieve those documents and quickly prepare those for somebody that was looking to do the board, or looking into the board business from a transparency perspective for those things that we would be allowed by law to share. When you have a personal email server, it does not allow me the ability to archive that. You have your personal conversations mixed in with your professional conversations, and all of it becomes subject to open records, which could be problematic if you're having personal conversations that are not business, and they might be disclosed as part of the business or operation of transparency of the board. So with that, there's two items there that I just opened this up. It's for information, it's for discussion. It's not really for action, it's just to give me some direction. We can't talk openly in public about this, we can't have walking quorums, so really it's a board meeting where we just put it out there on the table and see where we'd like to go with it, if anywhere else.
I still like my hard copy. I would like us to, for myself, instead of going into board book to access agenda, minutes, maybe not minutes, I can read the minutes through here, just agenda in general, just put it in a normal email attachment that when I open up my email I can see it. Because about every other time I try to go in the board book, it knocks me out, I got the wrong username or the wrong password, and I can only have so many passwords, and sometimes just forget them. That's all I want.
What's the cost to the district for the board book?
Annually, $2,000. Competitively, we moved from another one, remember there was, for those that were here, I think Larry and Lisa were the two board members, maybe Julie, we used Edu Portal for a while. That was more expensive. We made this as a cost savings measure. There is obviously the ability to then archive. We have probably the last 3 years, maybe 3.5 years of board book out there for people to go back and look at our board agendas, meeting minutes, attachments, and so forth. So that stays out there as a place that's easily searchable on the web through our website. I think one of the upsides is that an email attachment to the board would create more of a scattered approach to trying to retrieve information about board meetings for those that are in the general public trying to retrieve documents. So this helps us to organize it so it stays by date, by board meeting, by attachment, by agenda. But we'll do our best to work within the parameters that you give us.
So when you format an agenda for a meeting, whether it's a committee meeting or a full board meeting, certainly you have the wherewithal just to email it to the board and then still put it in board book. And if they don't want to look at it in the normal email, you can go to board book, or they can access it in the regular email.
Right, currently what the board gets is a link that takes you right to that very document that you're looking for the attachment for.
Through board book.
Through board book, right. So that link will take you right to your username and password, you log in, and then you see your agenda with all its attachments and so forth.
I would say that most of these documents on the agenda generally are public. So Larry, I mean, there's going to be just a few instances where you would actually probably need to log in. Once they become released on Thursday to the public public can see everything unless there's closed session matters without logging in. So I think it's very handy from a transparency standpoint for them to be able to just pull this up and look at it. And this is what gets emailed to every parent in the district.
Through board book.
Correct, but they don't need a login. You only need
Then
a
how come I need
login.
to log in?
You only need a login because A, you get it earlier than they do, and B, there's some confidential materials often for board members that would require that.
But just to see the agenda though, you don't need to log
No,
in.
you don't.
You can just click on the link. You do if you need to get, if you want to get in to see the board, like
Attachments
the
and
attachments.
redacted
But yeah,
information.
just to see the agenda, it's just a link.
But I think everything except the closed session is public info for this meeting. So you would be able to click on any of those attachments as a public person.
Without logging in.
Right.
Without logging in.
I'm actually on that version right now. So this is what a general person in the public would go to and see without a login or a password.
But the agendas that we get a week in advance, so that's not accessible to the public that early.
It is, yeah. As soon as I send it to you, it's available at that very same time. So it becomes available to the board. The preliminary agenda sent out to the paper no later than Tuesday by noon. is sent to the board as a link, and then it is available to the public as a part of a meeting notice, and they can go on Tuesday and see the preliminary agenda. They can also see it as it's updated throughout the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then Thursday, all the way up through our board meeting on Monday, you see the final agenda. And the final agenda, again, is available to the public, and it's full with attachments. The only thing that you may not see is redacted information that might have confidential or sensitive information around students or staff that wouldn't be available for public knowledge.
And I can understand, if anything is classified as confidential, that's up to us, board members, not to pass that on, and you just identify that in an email. But we get the news you can use, usually once a week, and I like that. And we get sometimes 30 other emails throughout the week, which it's all good. Why can't I just give a copy of the agenda when you send it out on board book, give them on regular email, so I can just click on it where it is, without remembering password, username, and then figuring all that out.
So let me ask maybe two questions. If I sent you a link that would get you right to the agenda without a password or username and password, would that work for you?
If that would work, yeah.
Okay.
But you just click on it, it comes up.
I think I can do that.
That
We can try that.
That wouldn't be through board book.
It would be through board book, but it would bypass your password. It would just be the public version.
Okay.
So we can try that first, and if that doesn't work, then we can go to the scenario, which is creating an attachment that would be sent out in addition to the link. It would be a two-step process on our end, but if that's what it takes to make things easier for you, we can certainly make that accommodation.
I want a hard copy, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yes, I do too. And the 20 cents that it takes to make this hard copy, I feel like I paid that tax, so.
I would just like to say, I love board book. Having everything online, I just find it so much easier. When I was first on the board, we were getting all the hard copy. And the amount of paper that built up just over the course of a couple of months was astronomical. And there is a cost, not just the paper cost, but the time and effort that the office takes to run off all of these copies. We saw the Gordon Flesh number that we pay for copiers, $42,000 a year. I mean, the more we can reduce the amount that we spend on paper, I think that's a step in the right direction. So I don't think it would be a good idea to even consider not having board. I mean, I think it's the right thing to do. There was a period of time when everybody on the board, almost everybody, was using it, almost exclusively board book. I mean, I know that's not the case now, but I think it's very valuable. And for looking stuff up, the older stuff, they have it all right there.
I use it frequently for that, probably a couple, 3 times a week at least.
Well, when we're working for anywhere from $2 to $4 an hour, I think you can afford to make a book up for us.
I like the access of email, whether through board book or whatever we use, especially for past meetings, minutes, archiving, I guess is what you would call it. Yeah, it's great. I don't have a problem with that. But I do use email. I receive a lot of email. I'm not a big emailer out. I don't know, for various reasons. But and I've tried board book. Whether maybe I'm just doing it wrong, maybe I need a lesson on passwords and usernames and cryptic codes and all that kind of stuff, but it just seems like I have a lot of problem accessing my agenda on board. All I'm asking is just someone to email it to me through normal email like everything else comes through, and it will be there. It's not confidential, it's a public document. That's all I'm asking.
As far as the email goes, I do now use my school email and would like to just exclusively use that for the reasons that you stated.
Andy, you had shared with the board some of the information you brought back from new member orientation, and there was some information around email use of, can you summarize some of that?
Yeah, when I went to the thing in Fenimore, Waspy's legal rep was there, and he made it seem like a pretty big deal that you used an archived system. I wanted to be certain that if you were using personal, it was through a provider that was archiving, that you were personally responsible if you couldn't read out the record request through the school because you chose to use a personal email. So that's the information they provided. Just in order to read out the record request, it would be a good idea so that it's archived.
Do you have passwords, or I mean, login information for all of us?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
pass
can
it along.
resend it out. And we could do a training session on just opening up your school email account as well as your, if you wanted to, board book. You had mentioned maybe training would help in that particular case. Use either or both could be made available. And we can even set up your phones in a way that the school email comes right into your other email so that you get it all in one place and you don't have to open up 2 different places to get your email. They can come in together, but when it sends it out, it'll know if you're sending it back through school or through your personal, depending on where you received it.
Yeah, mine comes into the phone. And I have other ones too. So, probably worthwhile.
Did you just recently set them up for all of us, or that's been something
A
that?
year ago. So, and then I reconfirmed that we had them for everybody, because Andy requested one. But, yeah, so it would be your first name dot to last name at amp.k12. Your password is just a one-time change to something that you would remember, but I'll get you set up with your canned password so that you can then get in and change your password.
Well, for that very reason, what you're talking about, Andy, is I like hard copies, and I'm very limited on emails I send. Nobody will show up in my tractor in my field and I need my phone or my iPad, playing my phone. They'll want to confiscate my iPad.
You get in a lot of trouble with them emails.
They don't want your device, they just want the cloud.
As long as I don't take the tractor. A little better, you know. Anyhow, that's the reason I requested it on the agenda. And yeah, as simple as always, we're happy. This helps me a lot. And we've got, I see we have 4 people using hard copies, so.
So summarize the takeaway from this discussion so I know my directive kind of coming from the board, what you'd like to see.
Well, it sounds like people don't want to do a board book, which I didn't have that intent when I put it on the agenda. The board will still want our hard copies, I would assume, Jeff and Ben.
No problem.
And I would just like my email, my agenda in an email format, either an attachment or just send it to me.
Just like we're getting now.
Yeah.
Well, I had a laptop at 20-some years old. I've got one now. I never use it. The kids play with it, but I had one 20-some years ago and used it. It's so much, you can read so much faster here than I can fiddling around with getting lined up on the computer.
I would just like the email information. I'm glad we're finally doing that. It's definitely a
And when it comes to a point when they scare the public enough where you can't use your own private email to be on a local school board, rural schools will be in big trouble then. Then everybody will think you need a law degree to be part of a school board, and you gotta keep it friendly for the normal person. And effective.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. We're into items for action. On page 28 of your board packet is the purchasing policy 672, as well as now on the big screen. This is the second reading. We had a first reading last board meeting, and so this is the second and final reading. If approved this evening, it would go into policy, and we would update our policy procedure manual accordingly.
So who or how do you check to see if a local business is competitive?
I had a
That
similar.
seems like that'd be a lot of work.
I had a similar question. Thanks for bringing that part up. It's a policy that we should purchase products and services from within the district community, provided such products and services should be comparable and competitive. The comparable is pretty clear. You know, it's water for water, it's vitamin water for vitamin water. But the competitive piece is subjective in that, you know, if you can get it for a nickel down the road, you also have the ability to try to maximize the educational value for every dollar spent. So do you go down the road for a nickel or not? And if it's not a nickel, what is it? Is it $1? Is it 5? Is it 20?
But when you start thinking about sending Roger or a secretary or somebody that's making, what some of our staffs are making out of town, $1 or $2 on an item actually is probably a competitive and comparable item. I mean, I've never had anybody check us for a case of water, for example, and I know that I'm as cheap as anybody. I mean, that's just one little comparison, but it's like, you know, sweet rolls, for example, it's another one. Quick Trip or myself, I'm not sure if there's anybody else in town who does them, but we always seem to go to Dodgeville Bakery when we do those things, and it's like, really, you've gotta have somebody go get those, and do they pay taxes to the Winter Point School District? I don't think so. I mean, I haven't noticed any plumbers being used out of the district recently. I know in the past, initially, we were using plumbers outside the district, and I would say, why? When we have so many good ones.
I'm not sure I have a good suggestion for the board. Anybody else have an opinion on competitive?
Well, that's the thing, if you get to drive someplace, you got the expense of, getting there too. It's,
I'm just curious how we should think about handling that. And does this purchasing pertain to our clubs, like art clubs and Key Club and those others? Or do they just go wherever they want out of town?
Well, I used to get a kick out of some of the clubs, to go to Sam's, buy all their stuff, then come around and ask for a donation.
How does this read if you drop the word "and competitive" and just have it be the policy is to purchase products and services from within the district community, provided they're comparable? I don't know if it loses then the meaning or the intent, but it just gives us.
I mean, I don't know when this was last changed, but 25 years ago, the policy actually stated everything that could possibly be bought, any items or services that are in Mineral Point School District were to be purchased in that district, our district. So I don't know when it changed, but 25 years ago, that was the policy.
What's the board's desire on this matter?
Well, I think you have to buy in, locally and have local plumbers, electricians and whatever do the work. I see Ed does the work, and I'm sure that's because him and Roger have a good working relationship, and I have no problem with that because Roger needs something fixed right now. I'm sure Ed's gonna take care of it right now.
So would you leave "and competitive" in or take it out?
Well, depends on how you're defining competitive.
Gets back to Jeff's point. Because unless we're going to define it, it leaves it really up to the subjectivity of the district administrator that's got to implement it and the board that's got to enforce it. And that creates two potential problems if we're not in agreement about what that intent of competitive definition was or is, or I think it just needs to be clarified.
Speaking of clarification, I have a question. Does this apply for anything purchased or only things that are 5,000 or more? The issue you're talking about?
Anything.
Okay, I'm not sure if that's real clear. I don't know. It might be, because you guys have been dealing with it. Just for me.
Well, if you define competitive as 10% difference in price, that would, or something like that, or if it's, and then it depends on the amount. If you got a dollar item and there's 10 cents difference, you can't drive a Dodge.
Do you think there is a lot of purchasing outside our community for small? I'm just using your business, grocery items.
Well, that's why I was asking, is it refers to our clubs, because there's a lot of purchasing by our clubs outside of the district, but, yeah, I'm not saying they have to buy from me. There's Mitchell's, there's Ivy's, Ben Franklin, Quick Trip.
Correct, yeah.
Wendy's, whatever you choose. I don't know, it's just a question I'm throwing out there.
Maybe a general description or a statement in there saying do the best effort to use local businesses. Because there
The
will
top
always be
part
something.
sort of says it, right? That the board talks about its intention to shop locally and competitively to seek the maximum value or whatever.
Well, you could write 48 paragraphs up there, you're still gonna have to, there's gonna be the human factor.
Just leave it
But
as
I
is.
just think you should try to buy stuff locally. If local people are supporting the school with taxes and donations and,
Leave it as is.
I mean, just for what it's worth, in redrafting this policy, you know, I purposely made the local part of it the very first thing in this policy. It is important to shop locally, and I think defining it would be really tough, the competitive nature. I mean, I think this says, when you can buy local, make an effort.
Maybe there needs to be a directive put out to the clubs, school sanctioned clubs, saying use every effort possible to buy local.
And this policy would do just that. This
You
will be
would.
shared with all staff to let them know this is the new policy going forward, and note that there's an emphasis on purchasing local. So I think the board will make that pretty clear. To a point that brought up, I think Lisa clarified, I was wondering, when we talked about when the cost exceeds 5,000, the question I think was derived in the first reading of whether that was a unit cost or an aggregate cost. And I think we should clarify that here so that it's crystal clear for anybody reading this document that we're talking about an order total or a single item. And that's whatever the board decides. But I'm not sure I had clarity. I had heard you say unit cost, if I recall it correctly, and if I'm not recalling that correctly, then let me know. But if it is unit costs of anything that's $5,000 or more, let's just put the word unit in there. If that's not the intent of the full board, and it's any order that in aggregate is 5,000 or more, let's put that in as well.
I think if the intent's aggregate, or we wouldn't have the splitting orders portion to circumvent, because the unit cost would still be the unit cost. So I think the intent is aggregate.
Agreed? Okay.
I think the way that's written, it means individual. And, sometime in the future, if it becomes a problem, we can always add the aggregate amount, and that might be, if you're going to do that, that might be a higher figure than the single figure would be. Because when you make this, 17 years from now, Luke might not be here. So when you make something, you have to stop and think about, you're not making this for Luke, you're making it for whoever has the job. And oftentimes that kind of gets forgotten about when you're making things.
I guess my only other comment on this would be, because it's come up a couple times, and I know your concern is classroom time more than costs, but there's been concerns on costs. I think we should either include professional development in here, or trust Luke that if he is approving somebody to go somewhere, that he's spending our dollars as wisely as he can.
Well, I think there's two separate issues.
I don't think it
I
falls
want
under
to
good.
No, that's what I'm saying, is I know yours is different, but some people have argued, I mean, the $1,500 came up tonight, and why we didn't bring it to the board, but there's nothing that says we should have. It says it's
Yeah, at this
entitled to or it's budgeted, you know, and it still wouldn't
Yeah, but I think we need a separate policy
for the classroom.
for that. Right.
Okay. I have no problem with that, I don't like us putting this in place and then questioning every time we spend $1,500 on professional development when we had an opportunity to include
But
that.
that's professional development, it's not purchasing.
Okay.
But I agree with what you're saying, I just.
Luke, for example, where did Roger get the battery from? Did you check with Mitchell, or, you don't have to name her, but do you think you checked with anybody else at all?
Roger always does.
That's what he usually does.
Yeah. I don't know if he specifically contacted Mitchell's, that I don't know, but I know Roger does do his due diligence to call around and make sure he's the best price.
He does.
Yeah,
I know that.
Expect on that case there, it was the batteries for the floor scrubbers, maybe the zinc and red and gin in there.
There was a golf cart battery, which was $1,400, so it's probably.
Specialty type batteries.
Those ones,
That was what part of that order, yes.
Did you buy all the batteries for a year at one time, or?
It looks to be in this particular case, it was the one large battery for most likely the Zamboni, but a larger piece of equipment, and then smaller AA's, AAA's, and C's.
There's Interstate, if we buy direct from Interstate, the price would be good, but,
I did hear two board voices on the word unit and the word aggregate, and I'm not sure I got clear clarity from the board, so I want to just clarify the board's position on it.
Would it be both?
put individual items in there. Individual item cost exceeds $5,000.
So we're saying when the unit cost exceeds $5,000.
Then you could take the splitting orders to circumvent out. Yeah.
That's why I asked the question, I want clarity from the board, I'm trying to clarify your position so that I get it the way you want it.
To use unit, then it could be something, it could be 4 or 5 units, so it would be
So,
individual item, I like.
individual price or individual cost?
Approval when the individual cost of the individual item exceeds $5,000.
Was that the intent though? I mean, my thinking was that it would cover anything that we would typically see in the monthly expenses. That would be over $5,000.
You're thinking aggregate?
I was thinking it could be both, that we don't really need to define it, that it would hit both things that are in aggregate. And for example, let's say, because a lot of times you purchase computers, and computers is a bad example, I know, because there's the technology budget. But let's say they buy some computers for some other reason outside of the technology budget. They're going to be under the $5,000. But if they buy them all together,
Oh my God, that's 22,000.
right.
They won't come under that size.
Right, so if we see something in the, monthly expenses that's 20,000, oh, but each individual item was under 5,000, then I don't think that would be good. I think we want to keep stuff like that coming before.
Well, it states in there that it cannot be broken out or broken something to
Splitting
avoid
orders.
the limit. Where is it?
Splitting orders.
Someplace in there.
Right.
Been a month or
Splitting
so
orders.
since I read it, but said
So
something
my-
about it can't be broken out to avoid the,
So I was thinking both It can be things in the aggregate or things that are individual that they both would come before the board.
Well, that really won't work because you could have 5 or 6 different unrelated items at $5,000 limit, but the aggregate's gonna be 20, 25,000, so you're gonna have to go one way or the other.
Well, that would come before the board.
It sounds like you're split on this issue, so I'm looking for direction. Looking to me, I'm not, if you're looking for my recommendation, I would say aggregate only because the more tight this policy is from a district administrator's perspective, the harder it is to do the day in and day out operations. I don't think this is going to be a huge burden, but it's just one more thing. So I am advocating for a position of less board control in the day-to-day, not more. So that would be my recommendation, but I've been clear on that from the beginning that this policy is not one that I don't disagree with. I just would rather see the limits higher and see less day-to-day operational involvement. So if you're looking for my opinion, I would say aggregate for that reason. But that's counterintuitive to why we're discussing this today, is because the board wants specifically that control of discussing larger ticket items. So I'm
I
open to
mean,
that.
since we're on new ground, if we want to start by having it just apply to aggregate, see how that goes, and as you point out, I mean, we can, at some point down the road, change it, strike it, if we think that's really not covered.
But doesn't aggregate include units? If one thing costs $5,200, the aggregate cost is $5,200.
Yes.
So aggregate includes any unit over $5,000.
And
So it's just
$5,000 aggregate, when it gets to that 5,000, you're all done, if everything's 50 cents.
We're talking aggregate per month,
Did I
correct?
misspeak? I would have said unit.
We're talking
You're
aggregate per
talking
month, correct?
which is okay.
Not
Yeah,
annually?
monthly aggregate.
I think, yeah, I was under the assumption we're talking an aggregate purchase, not in July, we spent $4,800 and now we're gonna spend $300 and it's over 5 and we have to get approval. I think we're talking aggregate monthly.
Well, it should be capital items too, capital purchases, rather than something breaks and you have to fix it. You don't have to call an emergency board meeting to repair something. I mean, it's,
That's in there, there's an emergency, the last bullet point, emergency situations. The board approvals.
And should we just put monthly aggregate?
So aggregate monthly cost when the aggregate monthly cost exceeds $5,000.
That seems fine.
I will put that as a amendment. Do you want to put this then forward with that change and continue our second reading, or do you want to bring it back one more time, or continue to move forward? Okay.
I agree.
So the only change, and this is a PDF, I can't make it physically on here, but the only change I'm hearing that would be in this is, and approval when the aggregate monthly cost exceeds 5,000. So we're adding 2 words, aggregate monthly. That would be the policy that we would need a motion in a second on.
You want a second? Motion by Jeff, second by Larry.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call on this one.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Hay,
Yes.
Baskin,
Yes.
Kinch,
yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Steffes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Approval of handbooks?
The first handbook that we have in front of you is the Mineral Point High School handbook. And as we go through, we have highlighted in yellow some of the areas that have been updated. Do you want to go through these one by one, or do you want to, have you had a chance to review? And I understand that in the board book, these colors don't come through because we print in black and white. So there's not the clarity that if you went to board book, you could clearly see it's marked up here, but in your packet, unfortunately, we don't print in color because that's even more costly than the black
Do
and
we,
white.
do we have a 4.0?
The 4.0 has been addressed, yes.
And all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed.
All the i's are dotted, t's are crossed. Mitch and I met again this last week before the board meeting to verify that everything that needed to be addressed was addressed, and I feel very confident that this is a solid document going forward.
Okay.
One place it doesn't mention 4.3, doesn't it?
It does not mention 4.3
Only in the event of a tie.
in the tiebreaker criteria.
They think, well, that's in the top.
Yes. So that would be, in a case,
If you go up
There it is.
right in there, underneath the academic excellence. So for determining the winner of the academic excellence scholarship,
I'm way too far.
You just read that.
right there, you've got it highlighted in blue.
Okay.
So if there's a tie, the top spot, to determine the academic excellence, it is the 4.33 grade point average is the second tie breaking criteria.
Can I just call out, when I read it, so the highlighted part about valedictorian sounds good. And then the salutatorian part, it says the same thing, except it leaves off based upon a 4.0 scale. I believe it goes without saying, but I also feel like it may be worth just
Hammer it.
plopping based on a 4.0.
For the salutatorian?
Yeah, right, like
Salutatorian.
the end, the second sentence, the exact same way you entered it.
Yep.
End the first sentence.
And for the valedictorian, I mean, why not have salutatorian also go under the same tiebreaker scenario as valedictorian?
Well, chances are pretty good that if you have two students with a 4.0 GPA at the end of 7 semesters, you're going to break the tie. So that forces one of those students to now become the salutatorian. If you have 3 students with a 4.0, what are the chances that 2 of those 3 are going to have a tie? You know, it is possible, but
It does seem, I mean, you could have one student way far ahead and have like 5 salutatorians. I mean, that's not totally inconceivable.
What's the reason not to use the 4.33?
What's the reason to not use?
Yes.
Most schools have moved away from a 4.33. College looks at a 4.0 scale, so we're simply converting it over to a 4.0 for kids to apply for colleges, and no one really uses it. We have kept it in for tiebreaker criteria for that particular purpose, but you know, there are kids, one of the fears was that kids may not take upper level classes because if they don't get the A+ by taking a more rigorous course, it may affect their ability to be ranked higher on a 4.33. So then that was counterintuitive to what we would like the students to do, which is take a more challenging class, still get the A, and not worry about the A+, and school rank. That should be a secondary component.
There are some students with a higher average that aren't valedictorian.
Right.
I don't know, but if you're intelligent enough to be in that situation, I would think you would realize that you ought to take the course which going to prevail for the rest of your life rather than try to get a scholarship and not be accepted because you don't really qualify to go to college yet.
that's been a slow transition. I mean, I would credit Mr. Paulskill for doing a great job convincing kids that, and I'll say, I was a lousy art student, and I'm still lousy in art, but, you know, for a kid to say, I'm going to take art so I can get an A+, and I'm going to take AP Calc, you know, that was the choice kids were making several years ago. And Mr. Paulskill certainly convinced a lot of students that, you know what, UW-Madison's not looking at you getting an A+ in AP Calc. They're looking at you took AP Calc and you got a passing grade, and you took physics, and you took Chem 2, and you're taking those challenging classes that they want to see you take. And kids are really starting to understand that for them is better in the long run. It isn't the A+, it's the academic rigor that they're taking here in the school.
Under the 210 plan, is it boys only than seniors?
Last few years. Why do the, I mean, it's very unlikely that you would get to the coin flip, given all the other criteria.
Right.
I can understand why you would go there for the academic excellence award, because only one person can get that.
Correct.
But if you have two students with all those things equal, I mean, not getting valedictorian on a coin flip, it seems harsh. Like, why not just at that point have two valedictorians?
You still have to have a determination for the academic excellence scholarship.
Right. Keep it for the academic excellence, but not for valedictorian and salutatorian. Not have a coin flip element in there.
Have a 100-yard dash.
That might work.
So,
What's the-
any kids that are in the running for valedictorian certainly know that at least by the beginning of their junior year, when you agree, Mitch.
Yeah.
And it's really up to the family and the child themselves to push harder, be better through the last 3-4 semesters of their high school career. And if you completely ignore it and wait for a phone call for Mitch, whether you have valedictorian or not, then that's not the way it should be done. Kids know,
I don't
families know.
disagree with that, but as a school board, I mean, these are policies, and I just think the coin flip, it just makes me a little uncomfortable. I think it's very unlikely you would get to it, because you've got all these other tiebreakers. It makes sense for academic excellence, because only one person can get that. But the other thing, why not just get rid of the coin flip? That's all I'm saying.
When I see the coin flip under the Academic Excellence Award, I don't see that underneath the valedictorian, salutatorian.
It
It's
says in
where
the
it
case
says.
of a tie, the criteria used above for academic excellence will be applied.
Okay.
So again, you have to get through all 5. So if you get through all 5 to try to determine the academic excellence, you're also using all 5 to determine who the valedictorian in your class will be.
Help me out though with the minds that are at the table and Joel, Mitch, Vicky, I'm not aware of any high schools that have had co-valedictorians. Is there such a, is it just not the normal?
Some do all ties,
Yeah, they do,
Okay.
they can
and they have one award winner, like academic excellence award, but if they have 5 4.0 students, some schools recognize them 5.
Well, I'll just speak from my own personal experience at Dodgeville. We had one, obviously, academic scholarship winner, but we had 10 people, myself included, with all scoring graduation that qualified for the grade point average of what. So we were all technically recognized that way, which is ridiculous.
It's like 3 hours over there,
It's, I mean, I don't like that policy, but to your point,
It
you know,
is.
you had one academic, and I don't know how they do it now, but you had one academic valedictorian winner, and really nobody even knew who that was unless you were in the class. It was not.
You know how they do it?
She had the, well, Dodgeville did it a little differently because they weight their grades for AP classes. So we have they had a weighted grading system over there, but.
My recommendation might be, because we're approaching the school year, to approve the recommendations that are before us, but ask us to bring back a study around this and look at area schools, what they're doing, number of the trends for are people moving toward or away from co-valedictorians, and bring back a recommendation, and the board can give us some direction on that for future years. I feel it's kind of quick right now to try to knee-jerk react and change something this big. It's a big piece to this, is valedictorian, salutatorian. I think we've cleaned up some of the things that we know we had lingering from years past, and I don't mind doing a study around this and bringing something back to the board to react to.
I'm not in favor of co-valedictorians. There should be a simple one person, top of class valedictorian.
I don't mind that. My problem is if there's 3 4.0 students, that third student gets gold codes just like the 3 5 student, and that's it. You know, and they may lose on the 4th tiebreaker. You know, but if you've done the work for 7 semesters to get a 4.0, and I don't think it's out of line to get a 4-minute speech. Or at least be honored, and maybe if there's 5 salutatorians, they don't speak. I think those students need to be honored.
We can look at what schools do in both those scenarios, and we'll bring something back.
I think it ought to be weighted somewhat.
I think it should be weighted also
That's a whole other issue. That's a whole other.
for a tiebreaker.
Oh.
Maybe the
It's
school
sort of,
board
it's,
should
I
do
mean,
it.
it's factored in the number of AP classes. And the 433.
Great discussion. We'll bring it back. We'll talk about it more.
Any other questions on the student handbook?
I have
Whether
a question
either
for the two
major
principals in
changes.
regards to the 210 plan that was implemented to try to keep kids in during that last semester. Are we back to having any problems or issues with kids taking a lot of time off? I realize the seniors weren't because they have an incentive. What about the other 3 grades or the middle school?
Well, we don't have two times in middle school.
Never.
We've never had it in high school.
And then what about the other 3 grades?
The juniors tend to miss a little bit more in the 4th 9 weeks. The seniors' attendance is usually the best in the 4th 9 weeks because nobody wants to take that extra final that last week of school prior to graduation. But there is usually a little dip in attendance during the 4th 9 weeks.
For all 3 grades?
But altogether, attendance is not really a problem. You said that earlier. I mean, it's 98%.
Yeah. But the 2% could all be during that 4th quarter, which would be a lot then.
How do you determine their grade then, or I suppose it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference if your grade point averages and everything are all done for the previous end of semester then. I'd still be in high school if we wrote tests.
You want to take these one by one and approve them, or you want to do them as a collective group?
There's nothing too major in the
Let's go to middle school.
Yeah, there's not many changes at all.
There's one in the middle that was in blue, that I don't believe printed at all. But basically it's on truancy, and it's matching up with the state statute on truancy and the criteria that would be put in place and how to intervene with regards to a truant student.
And it is updated to conform with Iowa County and some of the things they're trying to do with attendance. And attendance is a whole another issue that I think collectively we have to start discussing for excuses that parents are using for their children. And where they fall.
Sick and tired doesn't work.
Sick, yes, tired, no.
Family responsibility,
So
so.
one time for Robbie, I said he's sick and tired.
Because technically, you know, there's a limit on how many absences a student can have during the school year. And when they get to a certain number, I'm sending out letters, and my phone starts ringing off the hook. And once they get to a certain point, if they're over the limit, then they're gonna have to bring a doctor's excuse when they're absent. So, something to consider in the future.
How often does that happen, Vicki?
Oh, it's a combined, whether it's family responsibility, whether it's an illness, all those absences are combined. What was that?
Vacation.
Vacations, yes, yes.
You'll have a handful
Oh,
of
yeah,
kids
it'll
that'll
be-
hit that number
Yeah.
early in the school year.
How many days can you miss instead of, there's the limit for the state, or how many days you have to, I know there's a certain number of days because
10 in the
many years
school
ago, I
year.
had a neighbor kid, when he got that many days in, he stayed home and worked on the farm the rest of the year.
10 in the school year.
10 in the school year?
Unfortunately, I get that letter pretty regular.
It works out to roughly once a month on average. The last piece is the employee handbook. I did not load up the entire handbook, it's over 100 pages long. There's only one change, and this is a recommendation around sub-pay and compensation. If you recall, the board received some correspondence with regards to long-term substitutes, and also in the board packet is a survey of area schools and what they're paying. I'm recommending a long-term per diem teacher substitute of $125 per day. So that would be a change from the current $110 per day. In the comparable, originally my recommendation was going to be $120, but as I started to look at area schools around us, Darlington is $125, Dodgeville is $125, Iowa Grant is $125, I think if we started at 120, we'd already be $5 behind, and that gap would continue to grow. I don't see us trying to jump over the top of these, but if the board felt 130, it would swing some long-term substitutes to consider Mineral Point, because $5 a day over a long-term period starts to add up when you have choices between long-term assignments. But right now, my recommendation is for $125 per day. I believe that gets us in alignment, brings us up to the area contiguous school districts and what they're paying for their long-term substitutes. So those are the handbook revisions before you. You can make a motion to approve all three or break them apart and do them item by item. And I'll take your motions.
Luke, is the full employee handbook available online?
Good question. I don't believe so. Is the employee handbook, it is online.
Should be.
Under staff resources?
I believe so, let me check to make sure it's.
If not, certainly send a copy directly to you.
Under the substitute, part of that, is there anything in the handbook that, let's say a teacher needs a half a day off? What is protocol? Do we get a sub in, or do we fill in with employees throughout the district?
We would bring in a substitute for half of the day, and I believe that is part of what is captured here. Substitution may be...
Daily rate, number one, compensation 1.5, we talked about $50 for a half day.
So it's $100 a day or $50 a half day.
You have to make the same amount of time to trip and wherever and get ready and.
I would say, for us in our building, we also kind of look at teacher schedule. So if somebody has prep time, in the afternoon, is it something that we can fill in-house? So a lot of times we'll look at just trying to fill a sub pay like that in-house.
That was my question.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's somebody that has all 4 classes in the afternoon, then we might bring somebody in for a half day. But if it's somebody that, hey, this group's gone and I've got just 2 classes in the afternoon, we would try to cover that in-house.
Do you think there should be language in the handbook?
Again, it's all going to depend on the individual teacher and what their schedule is, depending on which half day. I mean, if you put language in there, then it would kind of tie our hands, and sometimes that doesn't work as well.
How many times do you have a teacher go put Dennis in the back when they're taking leave?
Well, usually if they schedule like a dentist appointment and we can get somebody to cover, we'll work it out. There's sometimes where I'll even go and cover because they're gonna be back in an hour. Yeah, so we make it work.
That was a question. Any other questions from the board?
I move that we approve the 3 handbooks, the student assignment book, the middle school assignment book, and the employee.
So a motion and a second to approve with the revisions. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next on the approval is the seclusion restraint report. This is a 2011 Act 125 requirement. By September 1st, we must submit a school board report on the number of instances of seclusion and physical restraint in the previous year, the total number of students involved in the instances, and the total number of students with disabilities involved. Last year, we had a total number of 5 times that we needed to restrain a student due to safety of staff or students. 2 of those were restraint instances or incidents. 2 of those were involving students with a disability. The other 3 were without a disability. This is a situation where all of the staff who responded to these situations were trained in nonviolent crisis intervention. It's a technique that is trained throughout the state as the proper way to restrain a student if it's necessary. This is more of a formality, but I welcome your questions, and we do need board approval of
Is this a state program or federal mandate?
This is a state mandated report.
And we need to approve it.
You need to approve it as a school.
We need to approve this.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
That ends the action items. We'll start with a little bit of a superintendent's report. I'll attempt to be brief but thorough. One thing that's not on here, I'll call it A1, is we were here for registration. Mitch and I were on site when it was about the 6:30 hour and the storms rolled through last week. It did cut out power to the entire city. We were on site and responded. Vicki was here too. I could feel.
Did you get hit by the lightning
I
or
could
what?
feel the heat coming. And at that time, we all responded in different ways to different areas of the building. We received a report that there was water coming in from the agricultural door, or the building goes out to the ag building. I met up with Vicki and Mitch, who had already responded. They had towels down where the water was literally coming in horizontally underneath the door, seeping into the spillway. We then checked the adjacent rooms, and Roger's custodial receiving area underneath his large garage bay door was also receiving water. We moved things around to try to mitigate the water as best we could. Came back to the place. We actually closed up registration early, sent our photographers home and informed people that we're waiting in line to have their picture taken, but unfortunately they need to come back to our date on the 18th. They don't have to wait in line and go right to the picture taking station, but with the power out, it was not going to be feasible for us to finish the registration process. With that said, the backup systems worked well. The power generators came on. We had emergency lighting for all people to exit safely. In fact, we stayed for a while thinking maybe the power would come back on, but after 15 minutes we decided to shut down. And we were only 15 minutes from the end of the period anyway. Most people stayed. The rain was too hard to go back to their cars. But another piece is our technology continued to be online, accessible, and usable. Which is part of our backup system that we've invested in, so that if there is power down, we can continue to operate under emergency business and have communications inside and outside of the school. There was then a report that there was water that was coming in from the wrestling room, as we went down and investigated, and there was water that was coming from the roof down an interior wall, 2 floors into the wrestling room. We pulled back a mat, and Roger did go up there the following day, believes that water was coming in between flashing and the roof, and we couldn't quite determine exactly the location of the leak, but we think we've got it identified. We'll try to caulk it, but the high school roofs are a known issue that we need to invest in. We have leaks. Those were the 3 that I would consider new leaks, and then we have our regular leaks that we're aware of when we get big rains. So those we don't even talk about because they're regular. But for the most part, everything went well, and I just wanted to report out in case you had heard things. Obviously, trees down across roads, power lines down across roads, fires and so forth. But I believe everybody got home safely. So, thanks, Vicki and Mitch, for responding, and I think everyone felt well communicated with. We had a volleyball camp going on, young ladies that needed to be redirected and closed up early and sent home safely. The summer projects. The fiber project is coming to its completion. They will start pulling wire literally into the building next week, and then we'll have a cutover date shortly thereafter before school starts. We will have up to then 1 gigabyte of data available to our school district, and we will no longer be paying a charter transport fee to bring the carrier from WISNET down to the school district. We will actually be tapping in with a line that we own and we installed down to the highway right into a vault, and so we'll have more capacity than we have right now. We currently have 100 meg coming in, so times that by 10, you got a gig, and we will be paying less for that. So it is a 4-year payback again on that investment. There is an upcharge, but we do get E-rate reimbursement at 60% of that project cost will be paid for by the federal government, and then in 4 years, all of that will be to the good as we pay that back in the time that energy that we've invested on the front end. We do have a 10-year facility plan update planned for September. I met with the Nexus group earlier last week, and we talked about dates. So I will send these dates to you in an email so you have them captured, but the idea is to slow this process down, make sure that you have all of your questions answered so you can make an informed decision. And we believe that in order to do that in a way that engages both the board in a transparent manner along with community, it would probably be a 4 to 5 month process to unfold all of the different components to what they will share with the board. So it will start with our regular board meeting on September 12th.
They would like to give a project overview of the work that they've done. They have gotten into some really deep detail in our district about ways that we can save money and find efficiencies and fix things that we know are not working right, and have packaged that in a way that I think will put our school district in a great place going forward for the next 10 years. So that project overview will be delivered on September 12th inside of our regular board meeting. Anticipate that to be about a 30-minute presentation. For the sake of the board and others, I think they are planning not to take questions at that time. They'll leave you with a binder of their report. They'll give you some time to read through it, formulate your thoughts and questions, and then they have built in Wednesday the 28th to come back in a standalone meeting and just work with the board on what they would call a detailed project review. So you would then have the opportunity, and just that would be our only agenda item for the night. We would work through that process and get more information, questions answered. They would come back on October 12th and meet with the board, and at that time they would do a building tour, and we could go through the different areas and actually see the things that we're talking about and ask the questions while we're looking at the sites or the rooms or the facilities and spaces, either inside or outside, and be able to get a better sense of what this project that they might be proposing would entail. On November 16th, they recommend a committee listening session. Again, that would be a Wednesday evening. The community could come in and also see the project. They'll probably have learned about it through the board meetings. We'll have an opportunity to give some feedback, steer the board in what they believe the community would or would not like to see as a project going forward. They would also have the ability then for the community to tour some of the sites and the buildings and see some of the detail in a boiler room or other. As many times it's just a place that people don't see. So we would put that together in November. We would come back on the November 30th outside of a regular board meeting and just have a first reading. It would be the first opportunity for the board to define the project and give it some shape as to whether you want to continue or not continue with the project, and what that scope might be. And then the final reading would be December 12th. That would be inside of our regular board meeting. It would be a final opportunity for the community to address us in a regular session and give any final thoughts or feedbacks before the board voted on a final project. That's the tentative timeline. We've worked through it together to kind of shape what we think would be a good balance of time for us to digest information, get feedback from stakeholders, but also if we don't have a timeline, I think this could stretch out easily for a year, and we might get stuck in a rut where we aren't able to make a decision, and that decision may be to do nothing and move on, or it may be to do a project. But this hopefully will keep us on schedule and get us to the point where we can move on to other things. I'll send those dates to you, 2 regular board meetings, so those are already on your calendar. The dates in between are Wednesdays. The reason we chose Wednesdays was because we can get a commitment from representatives from Nexus to be here. We are not their only client, and every Monday is when boards meet, and so they are in multiple board meetings. They're giving us 2 of their Monday dates. They're also balancing their other clients on Mondays, so we can shift some of these to Wednesdays. They've already built their calendar around it to the extent that the board can be there. I would need that feedback. If you know that you're just not able to attend any Wednesdays, then we'll have to look at possibly moving to Tuesdays and or Monday and see if we can get on their calendar to lock these dates down. Any questions about that or clarification? And those dates will come back to you in an email this evening. This is an opportunity for us. I sent an email late this afternoon, but the the DPI last year recognized Cummins Emissions Control as a partner to the Mineral Point School District, and they received an award. There was a lot of press and publicity around that. It was a very nice event that I attended, along with representatives from Cummins, as one of few partners who were recognized on a statewide level for the great things that they do for our school district. The deadline to nominate another business or other media is fastly approaching, and I would like to ask the board for your help to list potential community partners or sponsors or helpful friends over this past year that you think might be worthy of the DPI Partnership Award for local businesses or media.
It is WASB.
It is WASB, not DPI? Thanks. Okay, Tony Evers came in and did the presentation at WASB, was that right? Or am I thinking of a different?
No, you're thinking of something 2 years
Okay,
ago. Yeah.
2 years ago, thank you. Anybody come to mind as far as a partner in the community over the past year that you think is worth thinking about or recognizing? We can, I believe, nominate more than one.
Up to 5.
Up to 5.
In reading, the description, I thought the Democrat Tribune meant that with their fair reporting and the amount of coverage, and there's different newspapers that were honored the last couple of years. I think they need a good candidate. And then I thought Point Foods with the Point Pantry involvement and all that they've done with that, along with 25 plus years of scholarships, they both kind of fall right in line with the description that was given, were the two I could think of.
And this is an annual thing, I don't think they're gonna discontinue it anytime, so, we certainly have opportunities in the future too.
Now, if you nominate 5, you're only gonna have one that goes to the meeting, or how does that go?
So, do you want me to take this?
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, so, no, they, all 5 would receive a certificate. And there's no like selection process out of those 5, like they're gonna pick your best one. So it really is a great chance to just, I'd say do all 5 if you want to. I mean, Cummins, I think, was the clear and above one last year, but now we have plenty that, are equal partners. The opportunity comes for publicity with the Wisconsin, or the school news magazine that you all receive. Cummins was featured in that article last year. I don't know what kind of angle they're gonna take this year, but they usually do a more in-depth story on potentially, one or all 5 of those, so something to think about also.
The softball field down there, whose jurisdiction is that under?
Yeah, we were contributors to that project in our community fund. We supported some of the infill because we were also a partner in that facility. We used that. But the majority of that was organized and led by the city.
And there's some outside donations in that too, for the field and the dugouts.
I mean, Chamber of Commerce was, some of those are recognized. I mean, really anything's wide open, I think.
Well, I thought Seymour Green gave you a significant amount of money for that.
Yeah.
I might add Mitchell Design. There's things throughout the school. I look at our mission statement up here and some of the branding and things that have gone on with the newsletter and so forth. But also I think of some of those other efforts around the endowment fund and getting that up. Kristen Mitchell was pretty instrumental in carrying that group forward in meeting dates, as well as the stadium fundraising project. She continues to support that not only with her time and expertise, but also their company has given a financial donation to that project. So that's one that has been a good partner for us as well.
Hospitals.
Hospitals, both banks. Both banks.
Okay, now we have more than 5.
And you take the first 5.
You do banks next year.
You've given us much to go on. I think we can take it from here.
Okay.
And we'll
If you're
organize it.
comfortable with that as a board. This is the
It's your
School Board
nomination.
Association, so I don't know whether you want to do this. Would you like to follow up via email about this? The deadline is the 19th, but I need to have the description written.
Since you have more than 5, it seems like you should go with either hospitals or banks, but rather than pick one bank and one hospital, go with.
Then we can do the
So
other
we
two
have,
next
right
year.
now, we have Point Foods, Democrat Tribune, and Kristen Mitchell Design, and then hospitals came in before banks. But,
I put banks before hospitals.
did somebody say chamber before?
Yeah, you did.
I don't know what this is.
Well, we as a board is 5. So we got Point Foods. We got
Democrat Tribune, Kristen Mitchell Design, the 2 hospitals, Chamber of Commerce, and the 2 banks.
I'm not sure.
Glenn mentioned Seymour Green, or
The
the city, and the city
With,
with, for the,
Well, Seymour Green donated a significant amount
Oh.
to get the special infield,
The
so
city,
I was trying to recommend him, so.
I don't know how the city is gonna, because it's not technically a business, I don't know how that works from a business honor roll, but yet the Chamber of Commerce has been honored in other cities, so I don't know. I mean, we can certainly try it, but. Do you want to sleep on it? You want me to follow up later this week, via email?
Might as well get it settled tonight.
I feel like we just did our 5, right? Jeff's, the Point Foods, Democrat.
And it is, I know Seymour Green is.
Who else did we say? No, it's Mason. You said
You, Dr. Fox.
we're, our business is pretty
Well, it's real business, but it's not a real business.
That was one this year.
Which one, I didn't know.
Seymour Greens,
Yeah.
and the two hospitals and two inns.
What happened to Jeff? He get kicked out?
He must have.
And that's okay.
You kinda used to that, aren't you? I don't mean by this body, I just mean over a lifetime.
We'll hold on for another
Work
year.
together.
So Jeff, Seymour Drain, the two banks, that's 4. I don't know if it's crossing the line. Your official reporter, you're giving them an award for good reporting. You expect good reporting.
It specifically states businesses or media. That's the only what it's for.
I don't agree with it.
So the latest list is Point Foods, Seymour Grain, Mound City, and Farmers Savings Bank. And you don't need 5. You are comfortable with 4.
You have to leave somebody for next year.
Those
What
4,
about Kristen Mitchell presented them? Where you went through our report?
Is she
Jeff's
be
on there?
partnered with her school?
yes,
Kristen
Jeff's
Mitchell.
on there.
Okay, Seymour and the two hospitals.
Point Foods, Seymour Grain, and the 2 banks.
For the banks,
Is what I
okay.
heard. You're in town versus not. And then is there a 5th?
Kristen Mitchell Design, I've been here.
Are those the 5 you wish? Okay with everyone? Like I said, we get lucky, we get to do this again next year. And I thank you for your interest in this, because I remember coming to you last year, and I know Cummins was the clear and away favorite, but everybody just seemed like, okay, sure. There wasn't a lot of discussion, so this is good, so I'll work on those. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Soon as it at least 15,000, Seymour Grain donated. I'll find the other maybe.
Okay, the next piece is moving to closed session, per Wisconsin State Statutes 1985-1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation of any public employee, specifically the superintendent. I need a motion to go into closed session in a second.
Oh, oh,
Sounds like